Hey guys, in this video I'm going to go over my process of how I find the field of view and sensitivity and add options to expand those and to add more functionality to games. I'm going to be using two games for this example, which is Dead Space from 2023 and then the new Warhammer Space Marines 2 game. That game does have EAC though, which means it'll only work in offline mode, otherwise EAC will freak out. So in the settings for Dead Space, there are no default options for FoV, which is just really disappointing. And then for controls as well, there's only one slider for mouse sensitivity. You cannot set an aiming one, and that goes for joystick too, which is strange. But the first thing you want to do is you want to find the field of view. In most games, you can just aim down your gun, which usually does a zoom effect. This game doesn't. But if we go to a save station or a workbench, it actually does zoom in the field of view. So we do have a way to change it at will. So I'm going to go to Cheat Engine, and I'm going to start with a value between scan because this game, it might be using horizontal or vertical field of view. It also may be using radians or degrees, but almost all games use degrees, so I'm just going to assume that is the case. And I'm going to set a range of 30 to 80. This should cover both the horizontal and vertical. And I'll do a first scan, and I'll skip ahead when it's done. Okay, the scan is done. So I'm going to now exit this interface, which increases my field of view. So I'll do an increase scan. And then I'll go back in and do a decrease scan. Exit again, and then I'll do another increase scan. And the field of view should not be changing at this point, so I'll do some unchanged scans. And I'm also noticing a lot of these values are no longer within the range that I specified, so I'll do another value between scan. And that's narrowing it down a bit. Let's go ahead and go in here now. And a lot of these did not change, so we'll do a decrease scan. And a lot of these are no longer in the range as well, so we'll do another value between scan. And we have a decent amount to work with here. Now, right off the bat, the ones that are most interesting to me are the ones that have no decimal places. So these 40s would be the ones that I'm interested in, really. The other ones are very unlikely to be it. Now I'm going to zoom out and monitor these and see what these look like. So these ones looked interesting, but it is 60 and the other ones are 45. So one of these is correct and one of them isn't. Let's keep looking. Okay, so it's definitely not these then, because these are going down even when nothing's happening. So I'll delete those, so it's going to be one of these two values. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, right away I think it's going to be this one. So this top one, it does increase as we zoom out, but it doesn't have precision to it, which is unusual. It wouldn't usually be like that. This one does have precision zooming in, but it is weird zooming out. But still, I think that that's likely to be the address. So I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to find out what accesses this address. Okay, so obviously something is using it, which is good. This is a good sign. There are 3 of them, though, and I don't know which one of these is the one we want to change, so I'm just going to go through them one at a time and try every single one of them. Oh, I should explain what I'm doing. So I clicked the top one, and I clicked Show Disassembler, which brings me to the exact instruction that is accessing this. So in this case, EAX is the value, and we're moving it into RCX plus 50. So I'm going to click Tools, Auto-Assemble, Template, Cheat Table, and another template for code injection. I'm going to add a label for field of view and a symbol for it. This will let us change it. And EAX is going to hold the field of view it was read from a different address loaded into the EAX register. I'm just going to change that. So I'm going to move into EAX the value of the field of view that we're going to set. So I'll add a field of view label, and I will tell it to contain a float of, say, 80. And then I'm going to file assign to the current table, and I can close this now. If we go back to the game, I'm going to go ahead and zoom out, and let's minimize that. So if I turn this on, it does zoom us out. Okay, so that does work. So this address will work then. I'll go ahead and turn that off. So now that we know that this address is going to work, we can start adding some more functionality to it, because there's two other things that I'd want to add, which is a minimum FoV and a maximum FoV. And what this will do is, if we left it the way it is now, the game will never have control over zooming in or zooming out. In fact, let me go ahead and demonstrate that. So this is the old code. Now if I go to here and I click on this, you'll notice it's zoomed out a lot further. And if I turn this off, you can see, well, I'll probably have to zoom out first. Yeah, you saw it snap in there for a second. So this is the normal interface. And when I turn this on, you can see it changes the way that is. Now it doesn't affect this menu, but it will likely affect other menus. So I don't want to override that. So instead, I'm going to define a minimum FoV and a maximum FoV. So the minimum will be a float of 45, which was what the default value was. Essentially what it's going to say is, if the float the game wants to load for the FOV is smaller than 45, then let it use that. And if it's larger than what we set, let it use that as well. So the max FoV, I'm going to set to be, we'll do 70. And we'll set the default to be 70 as well. And now we just need to add the logic for that. So we can get rid of this. We don't need that anymore. Okay, let's move this up here. And then let's move this into exit. So this is always going to be called when we exit. But we're going to change the value of EAX depending on the situation. So we'll start with a compare on EAX, which is the register holds the current field of view value. And we'll compare that to our minimum field of view value. And if it's lesser than that, then we're just going to jump to exit. So jump lesser to exit. And then we'll do another compare for EAX for the maximum field of view. And if it's greater, jump to exit. Otherwise, if neither of those are true, which means it's within the range that we want to operate in, we'll set the new value of EAX to be the value of our field of view. So going down the list now, if it's less than 45, then let the game use that FoV. If it's greater than 70, let the game use that one. Otherwise, set it to ours. And then this will go down, hit the exit label, which moves that into the value, and then it jumps back to the address. So if we re-enable that, you'll notice now if I go use this, it'll zoom into what it should be. And then there we go. And then if I zoom out, it goes back to where we have it set here. And I'll try this shop as well, just to make sure it looks good. I don't know if this one zooms in, but it might. Oh, it does. Okay, cool. So this should be setting it back to where the default is. And then it'll go back to where ours is. Nice. So that's part one. The next part is finding the sensitivity, which is much easier. So if you press escape, and then we go to settings and controls, there's a sensitivity here. Now, the game could be storing this as 0.5 or 50. It just depends. So we'll do another value between scan for both of those. And in fact, I'm actually going to start a bit higher. So let's start with this, and we'll do a value between 0.79 and 81, just in case it goes a little bit over. Okay, so now we can start editing this from here, and we can just do the changes from this screen. Now, some games you'll have to confirm that first for it to actually apply in memory, but this game I don't think has that because there's no confirm button, so it should be fine. So I moved it down. I'm going to do a decrease scan now. And I'm just going to do that a few more times. Okay, and now I'm going to do unchanged value. And I'm going to increase it to 100. Oh, that was the wrong value. I'm going to increase it to 100. And we have basically, could be that one. Basically narrowed it down to a couple addresses. It won't be those ones, so it's going to be one of these. Now, this is really easy to test in game. Okay, well, we know it's not that one, so we'll delete that. And I'm just going to bring all of these addresses down here, and I'm just going to change them one at a time. And my initial thought is it's going to be one of these ones. It's probably going to be a modifier value between 0 and 1, so I'm going to start with these. And I'm just going to type in 0.1, and we're going to move down the list. And actually, that was it right there, because I can barely move my mouse now. So we know that this is the value we're interested in. So we'll close this old one and right click and find out what accesses this address. And there we go. So this is what is currently requesting the sensitivity modifier. So if we show that in the disassembler, we can see that it's basically just a function that returns the sensitivity modifier from some kind of structure. It's very simple. So I'm going to go to Tools, Auto Assemble, and again, Cheat Table Framework and Code Injection. And I'm going to just completely comment out this old code, and I'm going to replace it with just putting in our own custom sensitivity. Again, I'm going to make a label and a symbol. And I'm going to add that label here and give it a default value of 0.5. So now the new code is just going to put our sensitivity into this. I think this one needs to be back 1. And there we go. We can close that as well. So I should probably name this. This is FoV and this is sensitivity. So we'll add a new value for sensitivity as a float. And we'll turn that on. Now if we go in game, moving really slow actually, so this value actually might not be the same as what we expect, which is the 0.1. It might actually be higher than that. Let's try a 5 instead. Oh yeah, okay. See, that's much better. That feels good. It's possible. I wonder if it's no, I'm not sure. But either way, 5 or 6 felt pretty good, yeah. Okay, so anyway, that's the sensitivity, and so we have the field of view and the sensitivity. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this code over to AutoHotKey, where I will add even more functionality to it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll kind of head to where I'm done with that. Okay, so the AutoHotKey code is done, and essentially what it's doing is using my memory class to hook these functions and add some extra functionality. So this is a hook helper class, which just helps me manage this. It's still a work in progress, so it's subject to change, but essentially it takes a handle to the memory, and then it takes a static address to store our code cave at, which I find by just going to where the hook is gonna begin, and I just kind of scroll up and I look for some unallocated memory like CCs or maybe even 90s depending on your program. So like right here, this has a huge section of CCs, which is basically just like padding between functions, and I just pick one that has at least 8 bytes free for a 64-bit process or 4 bytes for a 32, and I just use this. So in this case, this is the address that I'm using, which is right here. So I am using this exact address. Just an empty place to store my hook. That way, If I restart my program, it'll read from here, and if it sees that there's already an address here, that means that a hook has already happened, and it will just use that instead of making a new one. Anyway, the next one is the size, and then the last parameter here is the hook entry point, and you supply this to be able to allocate a cave nearby so that you can do relative jumps instead of having to do absolute jumps. The next thing is reserving some address space for the variables. I just call this reserve cache. It's basically just like I need 4 bytes, and that's going to be the minimum FoV address. And then the helper class will determine where to put it, and nothing else will write over it. And then after finding that, I will write our minimum value to it, maximum value, and then write the default one as the maximum as well. And this is copied from Cheat Engine, and I have a helper function right here. So this will basically check the clipboard contents for copied Cheat Engine data, and if it finds it, it'll convert it and apply it to the clipboard. So I'll demonstrate that here. If I scroll back down to where that hook was, oh, right here, follow it. So what I do is, this is what Cheat Engine has output for me based on the ASM that I wrote. I will select all of it, this is the function here, press Ctrl-C, and leave all of this checked and click copy. And now if I run this program, it will say converted string, and it will output this string as it is here. Now here I go in and I add some extra functions. This is a relative jump because the 64-bit process is using relative instead of absolute. So in my old one, I would have put something else here. But the new one, I've added dedicated functions for this. So this is just saying do a relative address to this address with 2-byte opcode, which is the 3B05. And that will convert that into the appropriate number so you don't have to manage it. But anyway, that's that one. And then I write the ASM, which essentially in our code cave, it just writes the bytes, this function right here that we have, and then I hook it. So this is responsible for changing this address right here to jump to our new function, and then the function itself will handle the jump back. Because sometimes you don't want to jump back, sometimes you want to do a return, or you want to do something else. So it's up to the function to handle that. And then below, it's very similar for the sensitivity hook. This one's a bit more simple though, because it's only moving one instruction basically. But we reserve an address for the sensitivity, and we write the default value to it, change the code, write it, hook it. Pretty simple. And then this main loop is responsible for doing a smoothing effect. So I've added the ability that when you aim the gun in, it zooms in to the default field of view, and when you let go, it zooms back out. And then also, when you zoom in, it will decrease the sensitivity to give you better aiming. And that is all handled right here. So when right button is held down, it will set the variable to 1, it will write the sensitivity, and when it's held up, it'll set it to 0 and write the old one. And then I'll go ahead and show you what this looks like. So first I have to undo the cheat engine stuff, and the game will look normal. Sensitivity is really low, that's okay. And then I will go ahead and run this, and it is running now. Oh, there we go. So if I right click, it should zoom in, which it does, and it's got a nice smoothing effect. That's all handled in AutoHotKey. And also, it's kind of hard to tell, but my sensitivity is really nice right now. It's just where I want it. So it's fast here, and then it's slower now. So it's easy to aim in. But anyway, that's I mean, maybe it's a long explanation, but that's usually how I do it for games like this that are too lazy to implement a slider, which is insane. And another thing is, you don't have to use AutoHotKey if you don't want to. You can just straight up use Cheat Engine. Like if all you care about is just having the wider field of view, and you don't care about like the sensitivity and the zooming in and stuff, you can just use Cheat Engine. You don't even have to mess with AutoHotKey. I think Cheat Engine can also be compiled to like a trainer, and you can use that as well if you wanted to. But I usually prefer to do AutoHotKey for a little bit more flexibility. Alright, so if you're interested, I'll go ahead and move over to Space Marines 2 now and show you that game as well. Okay, so moving over to Space Marines 2, I've already found the values for this, just to save some time. The sensitivity was exactly the same, you can use it in the previous one. Field of view is a bit different though, so I will go over this one again. But again, showing the game has no slider for it, and the controls, or no, it's camera. The camera has sensitivity for mouse, but it doesn't have aiming. But it does have it for controller, which is just really stupid. Anyway, now that we're in here, you can see this game has a really narrow field of view, just like the other game. Like, for a lot of people, this is like, it's extreme motion sickness, myself included. Well, not extreme, but it really upsets my stomach after a while. But this game does have a gun that you can zoom in, which will help a lot, especially since it has multiple zoom levels. That's super, super nice. So, we're going to go into Cheat Engine, and again, a value between. It's hard to say if it's horizontal or vertical, so we're just going to search for both. And now I'm going to just go through the motions of doing some increase-decrease scans. So give me one moment. Okay, so you couldn't see it, but I was pressing my hotkeys to do increase, decrease, etc. And we've already narrowed it down to 400, but I'm going to do a couple unchanged. Okay, we've narrowed it down even more. Let's do another value between, although... yeah, most of those looked good anyway. So, what are we looking at here? Like 46, 39, interesting. There's a lot of those. It's hard to say. There's not as much to go on here. Let's do a few more just in case. Okay, so we were able to narrow it down a little bit more. Okay, this is interesting. I didn't, it shouldn't have changed. So all these red ones I think are actually wrong. So I think it's actually one of these then. And a quick way to test this is I'm going to freeze all of these values, and I'm going to change their value to something higher. Yes, so as you can see, the game is flickering, which maybe I should turn that off, which means one of these is responsible for field of view. So I will go down the list one at a time, and it's not that one. So let's try the next one, and it is that one. So that is the one that's affecting field of view. So just like before, find out what accesses this address, and we can see 3 addresses already. And just like last time, we'll go through the list, and we'll just try one at a time. So this is the first function in that list, and we'll go ahead and do a auto assemble for this. So framework and code injection, and this is what we're working with. So the value of RCX plus 6C is what's going to be the field of view value, and we want to edit this before it gets moved into XMM6. So what I'm going to do is use the EAX register. So I'm going to push EAX so that we can work with it, and I'm going to move into it that value, RCX plus 6C. It's also important to notice that I'm using ECX, not RAX, because I'm working with a flow, which is 32 bits. If I were to use RAX, it would actually not work correctly. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to move this into exit, and we're going to change this to EAX. And then pop EAX before we leave, so that it returns the stack to what it was. And now we'll add our comparisons. So do compare EAX to min-FoV. And if it's lesser, we jump to exit. And again, compare it to max-FoV. If it's greater, jump to exit. And if neither of that is true, then we will move into EAX our own value. of FoV. And we just need to add now these labels. So we have FoV, which we will set default to. This game uses a different, I'm not sure if it's vertical or horizontal, I'm not sure, but we'll set it to 100 for this game, because it is higher by default. MinFoV, we will set to the default value, or at least close enough to it, which I think was 73, so we'll just do 73. And then MaxFoV will be 100. And we can assign this to the current G table. Oh, okay, you can't actually do it like that. So let's change this then. So we'll put this back to what it was. And then we'll just, instead of moving EAX into FoV like that, we'll just do it like this instead. And then pop EAX and jump to return here. Or we could even actually add a second label, which handles this. So we'll do exit 2. So this one will just be exit 2, and we can get rid of the pop there because it'll be handled there. This way, if it's smaller than minimum or it's larger than maximum, it'll jump to exit, which sets the default value, pops the AX, and returns. If that is not the case, it'll set our new one, and then jump to exit 2 where it pops the AX and returns. And that should work. Except exit 2 is not defined because I forgot my colon there. And there we go. So I'll call this FoV2. This is the second one I've worked on. And I'll add FoV there, and we will turn that on. Oh, that did not... Why did that not turn on? Hang on a minute. Oh, I'm surprised it's even allowed us to do that. I forgot to set the labels and the registers. I'm really surprised it let me do that. Okay, so it should work now. And there we go. So as you can see right away, it is more zoomed out. This looks way better to me. And let me minimize that so you can see in real time here. So if I turn that off, this is the normal one, and then this is with our new FoV. But because we checked the minimum, we should still retain the ability to zoom in, which we do. If you didn't do that, then it wouldn't work. Now the downside is there will be a noticeable snapback as it passes that threshold and is now using our custom one. You could probably add some more code to work around that, but it doesn't really bother me, so I don't really care too much. And using it in AutoHotKey is exactly the same as before, which I'm not going to go over here because literally all I did in AutoHotKey was add the sensitivity stuff, because I don't like right here it's not on. So it's like, it's all over the place. It's the same as me moving around. It's terrible. But AutoHotKey would allow me to add more customization to the sensitivity 180. So hopefully somebody out there found that helpful. If you have an older game or just a game in general that doesn't offer field of view, then you honestly could change it pretty easily by doing this. You don't even need AutoHotKey. You can just use Cheat Engine if that's what you want to do. It's super easy generally. Some games, again, store it as a radian. It's very uncommon, but it can happen. You can Google degrees to radians and just convert those numbers and work with that instead. Also, some games have hard-coded field of views. When I was reversing Dynasty Warriors 8, it had hard-coded, I believe. Oh, maybe it didn't. I can't remember. But another game I was working on did. And those ones are much harder to work with because you have to basically find the projection matrix and edit that instead. So I won't go over that, but most games you can find the floating point value for the modifier anyway. I'll leave a link to the Dead Space scripts below in the description, and if you need any help you can leave a comment, or if you have any questions regarding my classes or anything I go over in my videos, feel free to add my public Discord, which I will link in the pinned comment. But if you have like general AutoHotKey stuff, use the forums instead, because they're going to be a lot better than I'll be. But anything specific to this though, go ahead and add me on Discord. And with that, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and see you next time.